overview of everything that we did yesterday. So, the first idea was that the conditional mean of y given x is alpha plus beta x. So the first assumption that we are making is conditional mean of y given x is a linear function of x. Right? The first assumption that we are making is this is called the assumption of linearity. This is called the assumption of linearity. Okay? For example, you could, if you say a violation of this would be if so this will be a violation where alpha into beta xi is not a linear function, right? Where the condition of y given x is equal to xi is not a linear function of xi, right? This is where the linearity assumption is satisfied. This is where the linearity assumption is not satisfied. On the other hand, suppose we have alpha into xi raised to b. Suppose the condition of y given x equal to xi is alpha into xi raised to b. Okay? Then I can always take the natural log of both sides. Will be log alpha plus beta log xi. Where now, even when the original equation was not a linear equation, when I take a log transformation of it, I get a linear representation. This is called a log linear form. Right? This is called the log linear form. Right? Okay. So you can have, so what we really need to assume is some sort of a linearity. Either linearity of this form or linearity of this form. Okay? Right. Now, the second assumption I am going to make. So from this, we said that from this I have yi ei. Right? Okay? Now ei is a random variable. So what I am going to say is, so we have E1, E2, E3, E4, E5 and so on. The first assumption I will make is, EI is normally distributed, and we have to still talk about the normal distribution, but I'll tell you what it is. Normally distributed between 0 and some variance sigma square E. So EI is a normally distributed random variable with mean 0 and variance sigma square E, some constant variance which will give the name sigma square E. Right? Which will give the name sigma square E. Sure? I am also going to assume, so this is the second assumption there. This now makes my model a model where I make this assumption on the error term is called the normal linear model. Okay? I might have more complicated models later on where I don't make the assumption of normality, where the error terms will be non-normal. In which case, what I have is what is called generalized linear models. Okay, when I relax this assumption that the error term is normal, I get what are called general linear models. Whereas, when I make the assumption that the error term is normal, I have the normal linear model. We'll study the normal linear model in great detail in the first semester. When you take more advanced courses in econometrics in your third or the fourth semester, we'll study more general formulations where the error terms are not necessarily normal. Where the error terms are not necessarily normal. Is this clear to everybody? Okay. Right. And the final assumption that I am going to make is a critical assumption. Covariance xi ei is equal to 0. Right? Covariance xi ei is equal to 0. Now, first, let us start with the issue of why in many cases this assumption is actually not satisfied. Okay, then we'll go on to properties of estimators and so on and so on. Okay, many cases assumption is not satisfied. Let us take the following. Suppose I want to understand the marks that you score at the semester end examination as a function of your attendance. So xi is your attendance. Xi is the ith student's attendance, say the percentage of lectures you attended. Yi is the percentage of marks you have scored in the econometrics class. Right? So what am I trying to model? I am trying to model the conditional mean of y given x. That is, what is the average number of marks scored by students who have attended 20% of the lectures? What is the average number of marks scored by students who have attended 50% of the lectures? What is the average marks scored by students who have attended 70% of the lectures? That is alpha plus beta xi, and then for each of the ith student, obviously there is a difference between what the average for his or her group is and that person's own performance, which is given by EI. Right? Okay. Now, for me to be able to use the linear regression model, the attendance and EI must be uncorrelated. Otherwise, I will not be able to use the formula covariance xi yi upon variance of xi to estimate beta hat. Right? Okay. So, tell me whether in this case that assumption will be easily satisfied. So, what is EI actually capturing? What is EI? What is EI supposed to capture? It is supposed to capture the pure statistical chance, which creates that gap between the average for an individual who has attended 20% of the classes and that individual's own marks. It is supposed to be a purely random choice, right? And therefore the error terms are normally distributed around the random, around the mean, and have mean 0 and are uncorrelated, all that kind of stuff, right? But suppose now you think of all students, and the average marks that students who have attended 20% of the lectures have is say 40%. So students who have attended 20% of the classes have got 40% of the marks. But one student who just attended 20% of the lectures has actually got 70% marks. So that 30% is the gap, is supposed to be the error term, the EI. Now, is this really a pure statistical chance only, or are there some other variables you are going into? In this specific model, are there other variables going into that? What would those other variables be? Students? Studied more himself. Right. So, actually my model should be say beta 1 xi plus beta 2 zi plus some error term EI. I will write this error term as BI to distinguish it from the model that I am actually running, say alpha 1, or say so alpha plus beta 1. This is the model I am running. But actually the real model should be this. So what is this EI actually? EI is this part, no? EI is actually in my model is actually beta to Zi plus Vi. Okay. So what does EI include? EI includes how much the person studies on his own. Now, do you think there will be some correlation between the amount of study that a person does on his own and the percentage of lectures he attends? Are students who attend more lectures likely to also study more at home? You think it's possible? If suppose actually how much a person studies and the number of lectures he attends is driven by a common factor called that person's sincerity. So both things are driven by a common factor called that person's sincerity. So if that is the case, then obviously Xi and Ei will be correlated. Yeah? So covariance Xi Ei will not be 0. Covariance Xi Ei will not be 0. And because covariance Xi Ei is not equal to 0, you can simply use the formula for beta hat is covariance Xi Yi is not equal. Why? Because there is a term here, covariance of Xi Ei upon the variance of Xi is there. That term is there, right? And because that term is there, you don't get this formula for beta hat. So if you use this formula for beta hat, you'll obviously go wrong. So will the OLS estimators be consistent in this case? Will beta hat get closer and closer to the true value of beta as the sample size increases? No, because they always remain, basically here beta hat will be beta plus covariance this term will always remain there. So as the sample size becomes large, beta will tend not to beta but to this full term. Right? As the sample size becomes larger and larger and larger, and therefore and yet you don't know what this quantity is. You don't know what covariance Xi Ei is because Ei is really an unobserved variable. Right? And therefore beta hat will not be a consistent variable. Beta hat will not be a consistent estimator of beta. You see the problem then? However large a sample size you have, you will never get the correct estimate. You are not guaranteed that beta hat is getting closer and closer to beta. Sure? So if the sample size, if this is called the problem of omitted variables. If you have an omitted variable bias, that is if you have missed out an explanatory variable, and if the variable that you have missed out is correlated with the variable that you have included, okay, then obviously the error term and the included variable will be correlated. And so covariance Xi Ei upon variance of Xi will not be satisfied. Will not be satisfied. Is equal to 0, covariance of Xi Ei will not be 0. And therefore you will not get consistent estimate. Is it clear? Now, but what is consistency? Consistency says that beta hat gets closer and closer to beta as the sample size becomes larger and larger and larger. Okay? Right? So, we are talking about a way the sample is becoming larger and larger and larger. Therefore, consistency is said to be a large sample property. Consistency is said to be a large sample property. Why? Because as the sample size gets larger and larger. But think of not a large sample but a small sample. Okay, think of not a large sample but a small sample. Okay. And think of making estimates on the basis of that small sample. To sort of take an example. Which anyway we will need at some point. Suppose I have.
So I just had a doubt in this equation. So you said that in this case we have X and Z who are correlated. But what if you have a variable which is getting included in the error term but is in fact not correlated with Xi?
Then you don't have a problem because Xi and Ei will stay still uncorrelated.
Okay.
Then there is a problem. If you have omitted a variable, just omission of a variable doesn't harm your regression. What harms your regression irreparably omitting a variable is still harmful, but in a limited way, as we'll soon see. If you omit a variable which is correlated with an included variable, you are in for trouble because your large sample properties will fail. Your estimators will not be consistent. Right. Now let me also talk to you about an important property, a small sample property, which is called unbiasedness. Okay, so let's quickly think of unbiasedness of an estimator. Let's understand that, and let us see what happens to the bias or the unbiasedness of an OLS estimator if there is an omitted variable bias. Okay. So now suppose I have got, say, x1, x2, x3 and xn is a random sample, okay, from a normal population which is some mean mu and some variance sigma square. Okay, so what I am doing is I have got some normally distributed data and I am taking a random sample of size n. N could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or whatever. Okay, and then I am going to use the sample mean to estimate the population. Okay, so think of say a collection of, say there are lots of mangoes in a large basket, and you know that the weight of mangoes is normally distributed. The average weight of mangoes is, say, in the basket is, say, 200 grams per mango. But some mangoes are less than 200 grams, some mangoes are more than 200 grams. So there is 200 grams and there is a distribution of weights of these mangoes around 200. Your idea is, you don't know what the average weight is because 200 is, so assume that you don't know that actually the mean weight of mangoes is 200. You know that there is some weight of a mango. If you pick up a mango at random, there will be some weight. There is some average weight of all mangoes, right? There is an average weight for mangoes and there is a distribution. You don't know what that average number actually is and you want to make an estimate. So the question you are asking is, on average, how much will a randomly picked up mango weigh? Okay, so what do? You say pick up 5 mangoes at random. You pick up one mango from somewhere, you weigh it, put it back again, shake the basket, right? Pick up some mango again, right from the bottom, weigh that mango, put that mango back again shake your basket, pick up a third mango. Like that, suppose you pick up 5 mangoes. Okay, you pick up 5 mangoes and form X bar. That is, you have taken average of these 5 mangoes. Okay, so you form x1 plus x2 yeah, right? Now the first thing I want you to note is that x bar itself is a random variable. Why is x bar itself a random variable? Because I could have picked up any other 5 mangoes. No, I could have got some other x bar. I could have picked up any third set of 5 mangoes, I would have got another x bar. I could have picked up another set of 5 variables, I could have got another x bar. Right? So therefore x bar is a random variable. Sure? X bar is a random variable. Right. Now, so if x bar is a random variable, we must find out what is the expected value of x bar. What is the answer? What is the question? Expected value of x bar answer? If I took many such x bars, what would be the average of all those x bars? X bar is a random variable, so if I take some 5 mangoes, I'll get some x bar. If I took another 5 mangoes at random, I'll get another x bar. If I pick up another 5 mangoes, I get another x bar, and so on. The question then is, what is the average value of all those x bars? In principle, I can get many x bars. So the question that I am asking is, what is the expected value of x bar? Okay. Right. Now this is equal to the expected value of because this is the formula for x bar, right? So So this then, I struck this up. This can be written as, this is equal to yeah. This thing can be written like this, x1 upon 5 plus x2 upon 5. This is now yeah. This can be written like this. Sure? Okay. Now tell me, what is expectation x1? That's a very, very interesting object. Right? And if you understand this well, then you will understand a lot of statistics. What do I mean when I say expected value of x1? First, what is x1? The weight of the first mango that I have chosen. Is that a random variable? Yes. Because any mango could have been chosen as the first mango. So expected value of x1 then is the average value of the first mango chosen. What will that be equal to? Can be? Now, because any mango can be chosen as the first mango, so the average weight of what I call the first mango will be nothing but the average weight of any of the mangoes, all mangoes, which is mu, which is the unknown quantity mu, because any mango can be the first mango, right? Therefore, expectation x1 is nothing but mu. Clear? Right? So, this will then be, so this equation then gets written as 1 upon 5 mu. What will be expectation x2? Mu, because that's the average weight of the second mango chosen, but any mango can be chosen as the second mango, right? Okay, just like this. Suppose I want to find the average weight of all of you, right? But I say I'm going to use the weight of any one of you as an estimate. So I can either pick her, or I can pick her, or I can pick him, or I can pick him, or whoever, right? That is my x1 will be the weight of the first person picked up randomly like this. Now because any of you can be picked up randomly like this, the average weight of all the x1 will be nothing but the average weight of the class. Right? Similarly, x2 के लिए भी mu होगा. Expected x3 क्या होगा? Mu. x4 x5 mu, right? What is that equal to? 1 by 5 mu plus 1 by 5 mu plus 1 by 5 mu plus, so 1/5 mu added 5 times is what? Mu, right? So we have proved a very interesting result. It says expectation of x bar is equal to mu. That is, if I take 5 so what it says is, if I pick up 5 mangoes at random and weigh those 5 mangoes, okay, if I pick up 5 mangoes at random and weigh those 5 mangoes, the estimator that I will get, the x bar, it will obviously differ from the actual average weight of all mangoes. So x bar is just an estimate. But if I kept on doing this, taking a sample of size 5 every time, and if I average across all those samples, then the average that I will get will be equal to the actual average of the population. Right? So what does it really mean? It doesn't mean that you actually have to take several samples like this. All that it says is, if you take a sample of size 5 and think of find an x bar, that x bar will differ from the population mean mu, right? But that difference will be non-systematic. So sometimes x bar will be higher than mu, sometimes x bar will be lower than mu, But if you average across various x bars, it will have the property that plus or minuses will cancel each other out. So, operationally it says the following, that when x bar is used as an estimate from you, it doesn't mean you'll be exactly on the dot. You'll obviously make an error, but that error will be a non-systematic error. You'll not systematically overestimate or systematically underestimate the population mean. Right? In some cases you might overestimate, some cases you might underestimate. So only saving grace here is that even when there is an error involved, when x bar is, you use x bar as an estimate of the population mean mu, you will obviously make an error, but that error will be a non-systematic error. It will be a purely chance-based kind of an error. Right? In such cases, x bar is said to be a unbiased estimator for mu. So any estimator of a population value which has the property that the expected value of that estimator is equal to the population value. That is, on an average, that estimator, though not in each individual case, on an average that estimator is correct, which means that that estimator gives you errors which are non-systematic. You call such an estimator an unbiased estimator. Right?